Hey folks, welcome back to DIY Buddy Guy. In this video, I'm going to show you the indoor plumbing portion of the outdoor wood boiler. I know this looks like there's a lot going on, but I'll explain. It's really simple. The heating system I have for the house is an on-demand propane boiler hot water heater. It's a combination unit, and it's a Navian, best in the market, all stainless steel, super high efficient. But what's even less expensive than propane is wood, which is why I have the outdoor wood boiler. I didn't want to discontinue this system, but as you can see, it's not illuminated, it's off, and the reason being is because I don't need it. I'm using the outdoor wood boiler, but I am using the circulation pumps from my home heating system, and I'll show you how I put it all together. So these white lines coming in, as you can see from back there. Sorry about the crude videography. This lower line here is the supply coming in from the wood boiler. It first goes to a ball valve right here, and the material I use is brass or stainless. That's all you want to use due to corrosion. You save yourself a lot of headaches. This next component right here is a strainer, and inside here is a screen, stainless steel screen. So the water or the material I use inside my wood boiler that is anti-corrosive and anti-freezing comes through this strainer. There's a screen, and it gets screened before it goes over to this black box here, which is the heat exchanger. And you can see there are a couple of pipes. This is the hot water in from the wood boiler. This is the water returning to the wood boiler. This is the water from my heating system going into the heat exchanger, being heated by the water from the wood boiler, and then returning to my heating system. To stay with the outdoor wood boiler loop, so I have the ball valve, the strainer. I have a temperature gauge after the strainer, and the reason I have a temperature gauge after the strainer is because if this strainer is ever restricted and the heated water is flowing past it, it'll be a lot cooler than what it is. On the wood boiler outside, there's another temperature gauge, and the thermostat to open and close the damper is 160 to 165. So my water coming in is about 162 or 3. So I'm losing a few degrees to the ground. 3 degrees to the ground between here and the wood boiler is not bad at all. So ball valve, strainer, temperature gauge, heat exchanger, another ball valve. The reason being is when I go to clean that strainer, I close this valve and I close that valve, and then I can take the strainer apart. I catch the material and then I return it to its container, and when it's full I will put it back into the boiler. Then the strainer is easy, just rinse it out in the sink and you put it back. From there I have the circulation pump. The reason why I decided to put the circulation pump for the wood boiler after the heat exchanger is because it's a few degrees cooler. I have another temperature gauge in line, so it's 150. So the water coming into the heat exchanger is 163. It fluctuates a little bit. The water leaving the heat exchanger is 150. So 10 degree difference for the circulation pump. I mean, it can handle 160, but I think it's a little happier at 150, which is why I put it after. And then from there, I have a check valve, an inline check valve. It's a spring check, not a swing check. There's a difference. And when the water, swing checks need backflow or gravity. Spring checks don't. This flow circulation pump stops, the valve closes. And then from there, it goes back out to the wood boiler. But what I have here teed off of my return and teed back into my return is an indirect hot water heater. So the way that this works is my cold water supply here that goes into my boiler, I put a valve there, which is closed, and I put a T, and I teed off, so I'm sending my cold water supply into this indirect hot water heater to be heated before it goes into my propane. In the event that, now as you can see it's off, but if it was on, the thermostat for this is set at 130. this is set to fire at 120. So if the water going into my on-demand boiler is higher than the temperature it's set to call at, the propane will never come on. But for whatever, there's no reason for me to have it on because the wood boiler is pretty consistent and I'm very happy with it. So I shut it off, saving propane. But either way, I am preheating. There's nothing wrong with leaving it on. I am preheating the cold water supply to 130 degrees, and the boiler set at 120 will never fire up. So the way they have that is, this is the wood boiler portion where the return water to the boiler is cooler. It's 150. I only need it to be 130. So the circulation pump here is on a thermostat, which is hooked up. Hi, that's Claire. Say hi, Claire. Which is hooked up to the switching relay up there. And when the thermostat in this tank calls for heat, it turns on the circulation pump, heating the water, and then sending it into the boiler. So that's the wood boiler portion. It's pretty simple. It seems complicated, and I know this seems like a hot mess, but it's really not. To look at how I tied it into my heating system, the way that this boiler works is it has a heating loop. There's a circulation pump in this boiler that grabs the water from the heating system, my baseboard hot water, and there's a circulation pump for the zone upstairs, and then I have another circulation pump for the radiant and floor zone, and both are on their own thermostats. So when either thermostat calls, whether it's upstairs or the one downstairs, the circulation pump will fire up. The switching relay will send a signal to the boiler to fire up, to heat the water as it passes through the loop by these circulation pumps, and then it grabs some from there. But what I did was, I have this valve here, which you can see is closed, and my return water comes down. It goes over into the heat exchanger here, across the heat exchanger. It is heated by the wood boiler coming across this way, and then my heating system comes back up and into my boiler loop, and you can see that the water coming through the heat exchanger is 153. So the way, for those of you, the way that the heat exchanger works is the two mediums don't mix. My boiler loop from the outdoor wood boiler, the water from the outdoor wood boiler doesn't mix with the water from my boiler inside. It only exchanges the heat. So as the wood boiler water passes, it gives up its heat, thermodynamics, heat transfers from a warm to a cold, and it passes by the boiler loop from my house, which is a little bit cooler. It picks up the heat and returns to the boiler system, and then goes about its business. The next video I show when I have the project completed will be the electric, how I set up all the controls and the relays and the fail safes, and I went a little overboard, but I had fun with it. But if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. I will do my best to answer them. Thank you for watching.